retellings. Whether you love them or hate them, they're here to stay. So let's talk about them, why people seem to like them so much, and my own personal feelings about them as someone who writes retellings. Retellings have been around for centuries. We begin with stories from mythology. A favorite is Hades and Persephone. We see this one a lot. People love it, people relate to it, connect to it. It's familiar, there's a little nostalgia behind it. You feel kind of smart reading it because you're like, ooh, I'm reading mythology. Look at me. I'm reading kind of classical ish stuff. I'm special. Um, so this is one of our first forms of retellings. Even before it was an official published thing, this was probably the first form of retelling over time, taking these myths from Greek, Roman, Norse, Egyptian, so on and so forth, all of these great, fantastic mythologies, and changing them to fit each culture and time period as society progressed, which is amazing and beautiful, and definitely like probably the origin of retellings for sure. And speaking of old stuff, we next have retellings of fairy tales or beloved stories. We obviously have Emily McIntyre's whole series that she does, Never After series, which are really great. They really use the material well. There's cute little like Easter eggs in there that if you know the story, you're like, oh, I see what you did there. Nice. So with these, we have fairy tales. We see a lot of retellings of things like Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Disney classics, for example. Like this is based on Peter Pan. I guess more so the Disney movie than the original book, though sadly, and to my misfortune, I have not read J.M. Barrie's original Peter Pan story. That's on me. But these fairy tales we cling to from childhood. They bring us back again, nostalgia, love, maybe a happy memory of watching that movie with a beloved family member, or even sadly, someone who may have passed away since then. And we look to these as a sort of comfort read. We're familiar with the story, we love the story, but we're also really curious, what is this author going to do that's never been done before? How are they going to take my favorite beloved characters and storyline and make them something new and fresh and different that I will probably also love? It's a big task to take on. She does it well. There are several other authors who also do retellings of fairy tales and stuff like that. This one I am most familiar with. So that's definitely a big one after mythology is the fairy tales, the Disney stories. We love Disney stories. Where are my Disney people at? You know you love it. So this is where that next love comes from. So mythology, Disney slash fairy tales. We love those. We want to know more about them. We want to go back in time to a time and place when we didn't have bills to pay or, things to worry about like global warming or political nonsense that's so stressful and aggravating throughout the day. We just want to disappear into a story we read or watched when we were like 7 years old and just made us feel so happy and free and carefree. And it's beautiful. And I love it. Love a fairy tale, love a Disney retelling. Next up, we have retellings of classic novels. This is a very new one, a Great Gatsby retelling by Rebecca Kinney. Haven't read it yet, but I'm very excited. It's next on my TBR. There have been quite a few Great Gatsby retellings in the past few years. I read one last year that was not the best. I won't say it here. I don't want to give that author bad attention, but it's to me it's harder to write a retelling based on a classic than it is to write one based on mythology or a Disney or fairy tale situation. This is for two reasons. The first being there's a lot of pressure from these people who love these novels, people of all ages, from millennial, X, boomer, Z, whatever. Like, these are usually books that you either had to read in school or you actually wanted to read in school because you were like me and you like to read those things. But with these books, there's pressure from people who love this material, people who have memorized every single part, people who have quotes from these books tattooed on their bodies because they love them so much. So there is a lot of pressure to get those kind of things right. I love that kind of retelling. There is one I tried to read over the summer about Phantom of the Opera. Didn't quite hit for me, but I love Phantom of the Opera, so I was probably giving that book a lot more pressure than it should have had to be this great thing that I imagined based on my love of these characters who live in my brain for a long time and what I know about them. So I take that with me as I read, which is, blessing and a curse because I also started writing retellings of classics. I was an English major in college. Can you tell? So when I was writing this one's based on Wuthering Heights, which is not a super popular classic. I made my students read it last year and they were not fans, except for one. But this is definitely one that I spent a lot of time rereading the original novel, finding quotes from, making sure my new versions of these characters matched with the original characters that Bronte had created, because that's important to me. If these characters are different or vaguely, loosely based on the original people, I'm not going to like it. And I don't think my readers or any reader would like it either. So I spent a lot of time with these characters, taking out quotes, examining their motivations, who they are, why they do the things that they do, their relationships with each other, and taking that and turning it into a modern contemporary romance, which was a lot easier than I thought it would be. Um, but I don't know if anyone who's read this has also read Wuthering Heights, so I don't know how the two compare in terms of outside readers. I think it does a great job with the novel, but obviously I am biased. Another one I just finished, so I just have the proof of, is Frankenstein's Bride, which is obviously a retelling of Frankenstein. I love Frankenstein. I've read it countless times. And I do think since people are more familiar with Frankenstein, there will be more harsh criticism of this book, which I'm fine with. I'm open to. I wrote the book. But I also worry that people will take with it Frankenstein movie knowledge as opposed to novel knowledge because Hollywood loves to take license with things. And my version doesn't entirely match a lot of the Hollywood stuff, but it definitely matches the original text. Because again, I worked very hard to make sure these things matched, looking at quotes, character motivation, personality, how they interact with each other, how this can be changed from an 18th century romantic novel to a modern day dark romance novel. It was a lot of fun, and I put some Easter eggs in there that I'm pretty proud of. But these are things we love about retellings. They're somewhat familiar. They take context and stories and characters that we love and adore from various points of our life and give them a new lease on life. It's like a fresh breath of air. Just, these characters that we love and adore come back to life, come back to greet us in modern day context as adults when life is hard and the heat pump breaks, or the car needs a battery, or your kid is sick, or you have to go to the vet because your animal is also sick at the same time. Like these are things in life that it's nice to run away from. And I think that retellings do an even greater job of that than just any regular romance or any genre of literature. Because not only do they take us away from reality, they kind of wrap us in this cocoon of like warmth and nostalgia. And it's like a double layer of security against the world and its madness and frustrations and tears and all the terrible things that we have to deal with on a daily basis. So, those are my thoughts on retellings. I hope you like them. I'm happy to read your comments below. So, please let me know your thoughts on anything I've said, mythologies, fairy tales, classics, any of that stuff, your own opinion. Do you read retellings? Do you like them? Not like them? Any and all thoughts are welcome. If you like this video, please actually like this video and subscribe for more. I would appreciate it. Thank you.